And it's a muggy night for sleeping, 17, 18 Celsius in the south, 13 to 15 Celsius in the north. Those winds of concern, especially across parts of northwest Wales as we go through Friday. 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts, perhaps more in some of the gustier spots, could impact travel, tourism and so on. And heavy showers, even some thunderstorms across parts of central and southern England during Friday morning. Frequent lightning, heavy rainfall as well. They diminish into the afternoon. It's a warm and humid day, but a lot of cloud and that breeze will limit temperatures. Then on Friday night, so that's when a lot of action takes place. Heavy rain sweeping through, risk of some very lively thunderstorms in the east of England. And the persistent rain on Saturday continues into the north of Scotland, Northern Ireland, and some, well, heavy rain at times throughout the weekend across northern parts of the UK. Further south, it's sunny spells and showers and still staying quite warm.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good evening. The Don't Kill Cash campaign today took the petition on your behalf to number 11 Downing Street, and we are expecting a statement at 10:30 this evening from the Treasury, an instruction to the FCA and to the banks to tell the banks to keep taking and giving out cash. We may be getting somewhere. We'll discuss B Corp and what on earth is going on in the corporate culture in Britain. And she was known as the Green Goddess on breakfast television back in the 80s, but there's much, much more to Diana Moran than that, and she joins me tonight on Talking Pints. But before all of that, let's get the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Nigel, thank you. Well, the top story tonight on GB News is that we can exclusively reveal 80 migrants are currently being housed at a former RAF base in Essex. It's more than a month after the first group of migrants arrived there. The Wethersfield base near Braintree in Essex is eventually meant to house up to 1,700 people. The Home Office says there'll be a gradual increase in the numbers, but sources suggest the pace will be significantly slower than was first envisioned. The site has had problems with disease amongst the first group of arrivals, and there are problems with the utilities not working properly. And GB News can reveal 550 people have crossed the English Channel in 10 small boats over the last 24 hours. That brings the number of migrants who've made the journey this year to more than 17,500. UK Border Force say they're on red alert during an extremely busy time for migrants. A significant surge in crossings is expected as well this weekend as weather conditions improve. Now, as you've been hearing, GB News has delivered the Don't Kill Cash petition to Downing Street this morning. The Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, receiving almost 300,000 signatures from our presenters on behalf of viewers and listeners who've joined the campaign. The letter calls on the government to protect the status of cash as legal tender and a widely accepted form of payment until at least 2050. The Saudi Crown Prince has reportedly been invited to visit the UK. Rishi Sunak and Mohammed bin Salman spoke earlier today to discuss trade, investment, defence and security cooperation. The Saudi Crown Prince has been accused of ordering the assassination of the Washington Post writer Jamal Khashoggi at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul in 2018, a charge he has denied. And tributes have been paid today to the legendary broadcaster Sir Michael Parkinson, who's died after a short illness at the age of 88. Sir Michael became one of the country's most famous faces through his long-running TV talk show, interviewing some of the world's biggest stars, including Muhammad Ali and Billy Connolly. Comedian Stephen Fry described him as an authentic genius and that for him it had been impossibly thrilling to be a guest on the Parkinson show. Sir David Attenborough has also said Sir Michael went beyond region or class. He was just himself. He died at home, surrounded by his family. You're with GB News across the UK on your TV, in your car, on your digital radio and now on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. This is Britain's news channel.
Good evening. Well, GB News' Don't Kill Cash campaign has been going really rather well. Our petition on the GB News website is now just a whisker under 300,000 of you that have signed up, and we thought the moment was right to go to Downing Street today and to deliver it, not to number 10, where most petitions go, but to number 11, to the Chancellor of the Exchequer. And you know the campaign, we're saying we want legal tender to remain legal tender, and we fear we're being driven towards a cashless society. So I was honoured to take that envelope on your behalf. It's you that signed this petition with my fellow GB News presenters, and albeit the Chancellor wasn't in residence, he's probably on holes somewhere, but a chap at the door. He looked a bit sheepish, but he did take the petition. Now, what is interesting is with this and with the debanking row that I've been leading, I think we're actually beginning to get somewhere because, and this is embargoed until 10:30 tonight, so there's not an awful lot I can say, but Andrew Griffith, the City Minister, will appear tonight at 10:30 with a message, which is that the government is going to instruct the FCA and the banks that they must allow individuals and businesses reasonable access to putting cash into banks and to taking cash out of banks, and also an instruction to the FCA to make sure that the banks keep cash services. Now, what that will actually mean in the end is anybody's guess. But what is clear is that public opinion is very, very firmly behind us on this issue, and the government, for once, are listening. Now, it's very difficult for small businesses who are forced to take credit cards because they finish up, of course, having to pay quite big fees. And this, I think, is perhaps the reason why Gerhard Paleska, who's the landlord of the Griffin pub in Brentford, he'd rather have cash them pay these big fees. Now, this pub is very much a football pub, and he gets big crowds of people in. I think the next game is against Palace on the 26th, when Brentford are at home. And he has said, we're offering 50p off every pint if you pay in cash. Well, that sounds like my kind of pub. And Gerhard joins us live from the pub right now. Good evening. Now, I understand that the credit card companies charge you fees, and that can be many hundreds of pounds every month. But 50p off a pint, it's a bit rash, Gerhard, isn't it?
No, it's not. See, we done this initiative last Sunday as a trial. As a small business as we are a small business, we are a backstreet pub in Brentford. You want to find out ways to save money, because the cost of living at the moment is incredible, absolutely incredible. You just want to see where you can save money. So we looked through the card payments, and it can vary from a normal month where the card payments are £400. When the football season starts, the card payments go up to £1,000. So we have to pay £1,000 to get our money back. And the knock-on effect is that everyone just pays with cards, with credit cards, and the fees, like you just said, vary. Of course they do. Credit cards are incredible. The debit cards, not okay, but it's still, it's a burden on you. So because we are a small pub, and yes, football is a massive part of our pub, during the week, I'm cooking, I'm the chef in here, and we get all our local products from local suppliers. So this is your fishman who has a fishmongers in Twickenham.
Yeah.
He goes to the market every day. He calls me, I've got this, this and this. I'll pay him cash in hand. The reason for that is because we like to pay all our suppliers straight away, because it's a knock-on effect. It's a vicious circle. If we don't pay him, he cannot pay the people in the market. It's the same with the veg supplier. It's the same with the meat supplier. And it's the same with the crisp man. The crisp man comes in every 2 weeks. He's in the van. He hasn't got any card machines. He wants cash. You get your invoice, and you pay him, that's it. It's the same with the window cleaner. The window cleaner hasn't got a card machine with him.
Yeah.
He wants cash. So he gives us the invoice, it goes through the business, and that's it. It's so important for small businesses to have the cash flow going. A lot of businesses go under because there is no cash flow. And we, throughout the years now, figured out the best way to do it is all the small suppliers we have, we pay them cash on delivery. So we have no bills end of the month. That means, so there's not money going in all the time in the bank, and the banks, of course, charge you. So the card machine people charge you to get the money. So we pay them to get the money from them, and then the money goes into a bank account, business account, and then the bank charges us again. So a £50 payment, for instance, could turn out, if someone gives it to you in cash, you got £50 to pay Adam, Peter, John, everyone. But if you get £50 on a card payment, that means, with all the deductions you got from the banks and the card machine providers, that you maybe only get £47. That's £3. And multiply it times throughout the month. It's all money that's missing in the end.
Gerhard, I tell you what, you've put the case so clearly, so eloquently, and you're quite right. For small businesses, often they have to wait a hell of a long time to get paid, so cash on delivery is good for everybody. You put the case so well that when the FCA have their hearing on debanking and cash, I'm going to try and bring you along as a witness, because you put the case beautifully. Congratulations on your initiative of 50p off. And hey, I tell you what, if I'm in your part of the world, I'm coming in through the front door, and I may be there for some time. It's a real pleasure. It's a real pleasure to have you on the programme. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Oh, that was terrific. It was very, very good indeed. And didn't he explain it really, really well? Now, we've been talking about the FCA. We've been talking about B Corp. We've been talking about the agenda that has run through much of our corporate world that led directly to my debanking by Coutts, part of the NatWest Group. And I'm joined now by Humperdinck Jackman, Managing Director of ESG Pro Limited, a global advisory firm on climate, ESG and on B Corp. Humperdinck, welcome to the programme. Now, I was looking at your blurb here, and it said about your company. Many firms come to us seeking support for their in-house sustainability managers. Now, I suppose this is English, but what on earth is an in-house sustainability manager? Why do firms need them?
Now, ESG's been around since 2004, Nigel.
Doesn't mean it's right.
Doesn't mean it's right. What the problem with ESG and all of this woke capitalism, that's the phrase you've coined, that's brilliant, corporate wokery, is the large corporations are twisting how they present themselves. They're actually committing a form of fraud. It's greenwashing and social washing to exaggerate the value of their businesses, their reputations, pretending that they're something they're not.
Right, so they pretend they pretend they're doing things for climate change, and they pretend that they've got employment policies in line with a variety of quotas on race and sexuality. But what you're saying is they're not really doing it.
Jeff, the big corporations are fudging it. They're supposed to tell you in their reports how many incidents of corruption, discrimination, data breaches. They're supposed to tell you how many, what was the outcome, the facts. Now they're just glossing over it and saying, oh, we take corruption very seriously. We take your privacy seriously. Now the smaller businesses who aren't so well financed, they need help because they're competing with the big corporations. And to level the playing field, these smaller businesses, right the way down to micro SMEs, up to even quite large firms, 1,000 or 2,000 people, they need to level the playing field. With services such as ours, they can actually gain an ESG rating. They can compete honestly.
And so what you're saying to me is that this is now so deeply embedded in the corporate world, in the private sector, that without an ESG rating, it's tough to get business.
It can be very tough. The City of London places a weighting of up to 30% on tenders.
But this is just surely, Humperdinck, insane. Surely the basic function of private business is to make profits, to operate within the law, and to return a dividend or whatever it may be to their investors and shareholders. Aren't they the fundamentals upon which we built our economic model?
Make more money. It's good. Now, here's the interesting thing. The smaller business, when they align with ESG principles, when they do proper reporting, on average, businesses which have done this generate 67% more return on the equity.
Why?
Well, they've done things like business continuity planning. They've looked at their risks. They've looked at their supply chain.
But that's good management of a business.
That's what ESG is.
Well, but hang on a second. There's a big difference here between being well-structured and well-planned and having contingencies for what may happen in the market and meeting diversity and inclusion quotas. They're different things.
The corporate wokery would have you believe that ESG is all about diversity and inclusion, which is not always a bad thing. We employ disabled people. Great.
Yeah,
that's
fine.
Diversity. It's a good thing. But ESG is also about good governance. And if a well-governed company means that, for instance, when the pandemic hit, we all went into lockdown and we couldn't call our bank or we couldn't call HMRC or anybody else, even the garden centre, because they couldn't transfer a phone call.
I get that.
Is bad governance.
I get the G bit of it.
Right.
Governance.
Okay.
Good governance and good business practices. And if companies like yours are there to help and advise people as to what, they're new entrants to a marketplace, they want a bit of help, I get all of that. And I can see that good management, good leadership, it makes a big difference to a cricket team, let alone to a good company. But the environmental stuff, the social stuff, the almost pushing people to employ and promote, not on the basis of ability, but on the basis of identity. That's where I have the problem.
And me too.
All right, okay.
This topic scares some clients. What, you mean we have to just hire the next person who comes in because even if they're not the best qualified? Look, no. The answer is that is part of what you need to look after your people. ESG is about looking after the people you employ, making sure they don't, you minimise the risk of accidents, that you pay a fair wage, that they actually take holidays, so they get sensible benefits. That's
fine.
That's good governance.
That's fine. I haven't got a problem with the G bit. I haven't got a problem with that. It's the idea.
That's the social.
But the idea that the FCA are putting out into the financial industry is that financial firms have a responsibility towards the environment. And because of that, we finish up, with people working in the oil industry, for argument's sake, legitimate, legal, necessary, being debanked. That's what I'm arguing.
And who's doing the debanking? The organisations who are not being honest in their ESG reporting in the first place.
So the whole thing's a corporate fraud from start to finish.
It's an accounting fraud at the top. The smaller business, 81% of consumers want to buy a sustainable product from a decent company who treats people well. They're willing to pay a 9% premium on average for purchasing those products or services. Now, that helps our smaller businesses. The little man out there has grown a business. The small firm, which is growing steadily, it could be employing several hundred people. Construction companies love this topic because it actually does win them business.
Interesting.
Without being...
I tell you what, Humperdinck, I want to buy line-caught mackerel as opposed to mackerel that's been caught in a great big factory ship, or mackerel I haven't caught myself. I get the point. We want things that work. I just worry that with B Corp and with the reason I was debanked, I worry that maybe this gets taken a bit too far. Fascinating subject. Thank you for coming in and joining me. And that was a different take, wasn't it? That actually, they all talk this language, but in reality, many of them don't actually do it. In a moment, we will talk about A-level results day. A lot of very disappointed young people.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
all-party parliamentary groups. They're things that MPs join. They often join many of them. It enables, in many cases, people to travel all over the world on various visits. But some of them seem to have some rather dubious members and rather dubious supporters. GB News' Charlie Peters investigates just one of them.
We have a right to be here, not because of being British. We were here before you. We were here before them, but we have a right to be here because of everything that Britain has stolen from us.
Black Britons need to claim land wherever they are. That's according to Esther Stanford-Coze, an activist who helped launch a parliamentary group on reparations for slavery and colonialism.
So we have to claim land wherever we are.
Stanford-Coze said Black Britons had special rights because of colonialism and that African heritage people were in Britain first.
The activists' charged comments in this South London square were not a rare outburst. We've also seen her making charged claims in online talks.
At a panel discussion, she lamented the corporate white stream media.
These are not the ones that often get promoted, and certainly not the ones that the corporate white stream media are amplifying.
Stanford-Coze has also claimed that parts of the Black rights movement have links to the CIA and British intelligence agencies.
This is obviously a good thing, but if you don't realise that it's part of an agenda that involves CIA, MI5, MI6, and some of us know it very well, okay? That's all I can really say on this platform.
She also made air finger quotes while saying that Jews were the most oppressed people on earth. Other panellists at the event broadcast earlier this year made extraordinary comments that Stanford-Coze did not challenge. One speaker quoted biblical scripture that said that Jews belonged to the synagogue of Satan.
The scripture says they say they are Jews, but they are not Jews. And God says, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan.
Warren Alexander Dean, who campaigns for a special currency for black businesses, made controversial remarks about gay men.
This homosexuality thing is part of the black genocide agenda.
Labour MP Belle Ribeiro Addy, who spoke alongside Stanford-Coze in Brixton and who chairs the parliamentary group, asked the Prime Minister to pledge reparations earlier this year. He said no. Alka Segal Cuthbert, from the campaign group Don't Divide Us, said this was the right move.
The far more worrying problem is the political irresponsibility shown by APPG when they take these ideas seriously, because these are ideas that are frankly reintroducing racialised thinking into British society, that it's establishing legitimacy for seeing everything through a racialised lens, and absolutely no good can come of this at all. It's extremely divisive. It sets up not only divisions between black and white citizens, but it also kind of inculcates a hierarchy of oppressions amongst ethnic minorities themselves.
Stanford-Coze is no longer the public inquiry point for the APPG. But Belle Ribeiro Addy still spoke alongside her at the event earlier this month in Brixton. Many will today be asking, why are MPs associating with an activist who makes these claims and has these controversial associations? Charlie Peters, GB News, Brixton.
Interesting thought, Charlie Peters. If a white person stood up and said anything like that, they'd be in prison, I think, pretty quickly. Does nobody monitor these APPGs? Does nobody monitor what MPs are setting up and what kind of witnesses they've got getting involved?
But there are parliamentary groups that look into them, and as we understand, there are hundreds of APPGs, but they're prone to fluctuating every year. I mean, a few years ago, there were over 600.
Wow.
In the last check, there were under 400, so they can come and go very quickly. And many of the members of this particular APPG are on loads. Sir Peter Bottomley, the Conservative MP, the only Conservative MP on this panel, he's a member of 86 APPG. 86. But what he is associating himself with, and what all these MPs are associating themselves with, is this APPG that was launched in November 2021, which has a public inquiry point link. This woman, Esther Stanford-Coze, who clearly has some extremely controversial claims and links.
Well, not just controversial, but actually plain dangerous. So what do you think should happen, Charlie? Should Parliament regulate these groups better? What needs to happen?
Well, they looked at them as technical groups, but I think what all too often happens is that many of these groups avoid scrutiny due to the kind of personalities behind them, and indeed due to the kind of ideas they share that escape scrutiny more widely. And when I approached all the MPs on this APPG about these comments, about these associations, the white stream media, the CIA, all this really extreme rhetoric, none of them wanted to respond to me. Bel Ribeiro Addy's staff has said that they didn't have any information for me at this time, and they sort of left it there. And I think all too often, when you cover these kind of stories, you find that particularly people on the left and dealing with these stories, they just ignore them and kick them into the long grass.
Yeah, awful. Charlie, thank you very much indeed. Now, political advertising, political rhetoric. Are we getting too soft, or are we becoming more sensible? So let's have a look at a poster that was put up many, many years ago by the Scottish National Party, and it was in the days of Margaret Thatcher. I want to see the Margaret Thatcher poster, please. So, a Margaret Thatcher poster went up, and I'm going to show it to you in a second when they get themselves sorted out. And there it is. No wonder she's laughing. She's got Scotland's oil, and it's just sort of a Dracula-type picture. Now, I don't think that was in terribly good taste, but at the time, it was allowed to be an advertisement that went out, and we fast-forward 35 years, and now the Alba Party, Scottish nationalist separatists, have got their own version, their up-to-date version, and it's not very original because it's exactly the same as it was many years ago for the SNP. It's no wonder he's laughing. He's got Scotland's oil, and again, a sort of slightly Dracula-style pose. Stop him, join Alba, and this has now been banned by Global, the big billboard, or the biggest owner of billboards in this country. And I wonder, are we now showing good taste, or are we really getting a bit too soft? Well, the General Secretary of the Alba Party, Christopher McKelney, joins me right now. So, it is a provocative poster, isn't it?
Well, that's the whole point of advertising, is to get people provoked, to get them talking about the issue, and obviously the substance of the issue that we wanted to talk about was Scotland's vast energy resources, you know, the billions upon billions upon billions of wealth that will go in revenues to the Treasury, with Scotland having no influence on it. And, you know, we believe that, you know, successive UK governments have been feeding off of Scotland's oil the same way Dracula would
I thought. No, but no, you want wind energy now. There's going to be a green revolution in Scotland. You've all turned your backs on the oil.
Well, just like in England, not everyone in Scotland is part of a homogenous group when it comes to politics. The Alba Party, we think that there is a sustainable future for the oil and gas industry. You can benefit from, you know, those billions of pounds of revenues, but at the same time have a just transition, which has got to be credible. A just transition isn't an overnight transition, but, you know, we can invest in carbon capture technology that can make the...
If it works.
On scale, the North Sea is the best place.
But you know what, Chris? That is a separate debate. It's a separate debate, and it's a good debate. It's a very interesting debate, and I'm actually with you. I think that we're going to need oil and gas for decades to come, maybe in decreasing quantities, but we will need it, and we may as well produce it here.
Well, I'll tell you this one point, Nigel.
So I agree with that.
The first point, probably in my political life, that you influenced me, because last week or the other day, when Global told us, yes, you can advertise with us, but you can't say this, I actually thought of your case with Cootsbank, and I thought, well, there was a value decision made by a private company here telling someone, yes, you can bank with us under these terms, or no, you can't. Now, we've been told that, yeah, well, you can put up a poster, but only if it's like your logo or vote for us. I mean, that'd be quite a boring situation. But, you know, I don't think a private company, certainly one with a massive footprint across Britain, should be allowed to interfere in elections. And we've got a by-election, of course, coming up, where we wanted to put these posters. We've been told that we can't advertise our message to the electorate. Now, what happens if you've got the general election next year and Global decide, well, Labour messages attacking the Tories can't go, or Tory messages attacking the Labour Party? Yeah. They own a massive footprint.
No, huge. Absolutely huge. So, summing up on this, you think the Thatcher poster and the Sunak poster, as far as you're concerned, they're perfectly fair game in terms of...
Fair game, and the only reason Sunak was the poster was because by the time it took us to design the Liz Truss poster and send it to print, she was out of office.
Oh, they never stop having a chip away, but I get it. Some would say our standards have improved. since the time of Thatcher's poster?
Well, you know, 35, 40 years on, the message is the same. £300 billion in today's money has been taken out of the North Sea to the UK Treasury. So the message that was the same in the 70s and 80s is the exact same today. Scotland's oil wealth has been seized by Westminster. They've spent on Trident, legal war, and people in Scotland should get to choose how they spend their own money.
If we draw the boundary up from England, we may have a different argument.
Well, I think England is rich enough to be a successful independent country, Nigel. Don't get me wrong.
The one thing that is for certain is as the decades go by, the big political debates change very little indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigel.
For coming in. And joining us in a moment, we'll talk about A-level day. Bit of disappointment in our family this morning, and I'm sure in very many others too. Plus, Anne Diamond will pay tribute to the late Sir Michael Parkinson.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is two new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel. Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We learned this morning of the death of Sir Michael Parkinson after a very short illness, aged 88. Of course, a guy from Barnsley, a cricket fanatic. He even played in the same team as Sir Geoffrey Boycott. But a man who, of course, reached the most extraordinary level of fame. His late night... I mean, he did many things in his career, but his late night chat show, those legendary interviews with Muhammad Ali, with Rod Hull and Emu. And he just seemed to be one of those people who was a very much loved figure in British national life. And of course, in those days, fewer TV channels and just huge audiences. And certainly for a lot of young people growing up and being allowed to stay up and watch Parkinson on a Saturday night, it really was quite a big thing. Well, someone that knew Michael Parkinson, worked with Michael Parkinson, was indeed GB News presenter and close friend Anne Diamond, who joins me down the line from home. Anne, incredible the amount of space this guy took up in our national life over the last 50 years.
Yeah, because he had a real effect. I mean, I grew up watching him on late night television and then was thrilled to actually work with him at the very beginnings of TVAM. And he was a wonderful man to know. He was very generous. He was very kind. But he taught us all such a lot about how to do our job. And I don't think he knew he was doing it all the time. He just had this, instinct for knowing that if you want to be a good interviewer, your job is to make your interviewee shine and dazzle. It's not about you, the interviewer, it's about them. And inadvertently, he created a huge star in himself because everybody loved him and the way he did it.
Yeah, it's an interesting point, isn't it? Because I think there are certain television personalities today about whom it would be said that the interviews are more about them than the interviewee, and we're not going to mention any names, of course. But what do you think? What was it that gave him that? I mean, you've worked in television for a very, very long time. What was it that gave him that star quality? What was the little bit of magic that he had?
The little bit of magic he had was the fact that he never thought he was that important. He knew he was just an ordinary Barnsley boy, the son and a grandson of a miner.
Yeah.
He never really thought he deserved that position, so he just enjoyed it. He got a kick out of the people that he eventually met, and I think they rather liked that. He asked the ordinary questions, and he asked the questions that you in your living room wanted him to ask. And that's what made it so brilliant. And I was reflecting on it today and thinking, when you think of a brilliant Michael Parkinson interview, you're not thinking of him, you're thinking of the people he interviewed. You think Muhammad Ali and, all of those major names that he sparkled in. But it wasn't because of him, it was because of them. And I think that's his best legacy, is that he left behind this amazing broadcast work of people that he got to tell their story. And his interviews are worth watching, yes, because of him. We know that now. But at the time, he just made the interviewee sparkle. And I think that was a brilliant legacy to leave us. And it was a lesson for all of us younger ones coming up who just enjoyed his company and enjoyed watching what he did.
Yeah, well, I was pleased to meet him several times, but obviously didn't add anything like as well as you did. And, of course, his big disappointment in life was that he wanted to play cricket for Yorkshire. He wanted to be a professional cricket player, and it didn't quite happen, but he loved the game, didn't he?
Yeah, apparently he was very good, but he didn't quite make it. And the other big regret of his life was that he never got to interview Frank Sinatra. Apparently he met Sinatra at a big party. And he was introduced to him, and Sinatra sort of said, well, one day when maybe I'm in Britain, maybe. And at the end of the conversation, as he walked away, Frank Sinatra turned to him and said, it was really good meeting you, David. I'll try and remember you, and walked away. And Michael Parkinson thought, oh, I didn't make much of an impact then, did I? Because he remembers me as David and not Michael. But we all remember him as Parkinson.
We do. Well, thank you, Anne, for coming on and paying tribute to him. It's a sad day, but a very, very nice tribute. So today was A-level results day. Now, it's been quite tough for this particular crop because, they just didn't have proper GCSEs. And these A-levels have been marked much, much more harshly than last year's. And I'm joined by Sir Anthony Selden, head of Epsom College and, of course, former Vice-Chancellor of the University of Buckingham. Sir Anthony, my daughter got 244 marks in her economics. It was 245 for an A. That was 12 points higher than last year's A grade. Now, I'm not one to whinge, but do this year's crop of 18-year-olds, do they have a bit of a reason to moan?
Well, they have had a really hard time, haven't they?
Yeah.
Because of COVID and all the loss of teaching and social relations with their friends, and then they didn't do a proper GCSE to have the test to prepare them for A-levels, and now, absolutely, as you said, the marks have been devalued downwards, so there are far fewer top grades, and that's tough for them. By the way, for what it's worth, I think it's right that the grades are recalibrated back to 2019. It's what universities want. I think it's what many schools want, so that the huge inflation that happened during COVID, is now a thing of the past. But yes, it's really, really tough on your daughter's generation, on all the young women and young men at my school.
Yeah, and a bit of a row because Gillian Keegan was saying, well, look, don't worry if your A-level wasn't what you wanted, because in 10 years' time it really won't matter at all. Does she have half a point there?
I think that she has, she does have a good point, and she has, I think she's shown courage in saying that we can't endlessly have inflation. Inflation in exam grades, A-level, GCSE is like inflation in our money. It makes us feel good in the short term, but it's wrong in the long term because it doesn't have a proper sense of value and comparison. So I think the good news is that the great majority of young people who didn't get their grades that they hoped for are still getting into their first or insurance second choice offers for university. There are lots of people, therefore, who are very relieved today to get in and to have university laid out for them with the prospect of 3-4 years. But it's very tough. It's tough for them in view of everything that they've had, and my heart absolutely goes out to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Sir Anthony, thank you for coming and joining us on this A-level results day. Thank you. Yeah, really tough for this particular crop of 18-year-olds, what with GCSEs, them not being able to do those properly, and this. She was known as the Green Goddess, and Diana Moran joins me in a moment for Talking Pints.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Put your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Well, she'd been on the catwalk and she'd been a newsreader and a presenter, but suddenly along comes this new phenomenon called breakfast television, and this extraordinary sight of this woman dressed in green with commuters at Waterloo Station during the rush hour. Have a look.
Cold, it's dark, it's a bit miserable. But come on, Britain, wake up, shape up and stretch up. Let's get Britain fit. Take your shoes off. The gentlemen, under your coats. Make yourselves feel comfortable. Put your papers down and your pipes and your umbrellas, and let's all of us get fit. I call this the monkey. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Fantastic stuff, and Diana Moran joins me on Talking Bites, the Green Goddess. It was revolutionary stuff, though, wasn't it? Breakfast TV was brand new.
Yes. And I mean, there weren't gyms like we have health centres and gyms today, and a woman wouldn't go inside a gym. They were for blokes. They were for sort of smelly blokes after they played. Well, after they'd done the rugby and the football, and they left all their gear down there. And it was for boxing and all that business. So life's changed.
No, life has changed hugely. And you were saying during the clip, you still do these exercises every day.
I do the one particular one, the monkey, as I get out of bed in the morning.
Yes.
That's the one that I do when my body's warm and I stretch on up and breathe deeply, and that starts me off each day.
The point you were making back in the 80s, and in fact you were making during lockdown, is that you don't need to do hours and hours of weights or physical. This is about basic stretching and moving and keeping supple. That's really the message,
The
isn't it?
3 S's as far as I'm concerned. Stamina, that's a little bit of aerobic work. That means going up and down steps, quite honestly, and breathing deeply. So that's stamina. Then strength, just by moving a few things, doing the gardening and, housework. And then suppleness, to be able to continue to bend and to stretch. 3 S's.
And if you can do that, the suppleness in particular, I guess that makes getting older... well, I'm trying to be delicate about it, but talking generally about people getting into older years and they tend to not be very supple and not very mobile. And I mean, do you think doing one of these routines, and what would it be every day, 15 minutes?
Oh, it's only a few minutes, for goodness sake. And then you make activity, let's call it exercise for a minute. You make activity part of your everyday life. People retire and they have bungalows. Hello, they haven't got stairs to go up and down. I live in a townhouse. I'm up and down the blooming 3 flights.
I'm sure you are.
Not again.
I'm sure you are.
But you see, it's good. It's good for the heart.
Yeah.
And so gardening, taking the dog for a walk, talking to people, being mentally alive as well as...
And it just makes a difference.
Physically, yeah, it does.
Now, this, you were there on the BBC, but of course, ITV also launched its own breakfast show.
After us.
No, I know, it was afterwards. And so, of course, you crossed over in many ways with Michael Parkinson.
Oh, many
Sir Michael,
times,
who's died today.
yes. And also, I saw Anne Diamond earlier on,
Yes.
so Anne Diamond and I have crossed as well. Let me just tell you one story. Parkinson, if you recall, had emu, Rod Hull,
yes.
an emu on the programme, and that blooming animal, or bird, or whatever it was, actually took him to pieces, pulled him off his chair, the whole blooming lot. Just after that, Emu came in and to do Keep Fit with me. Well, I mean, it was heading for a disaster, wasn't it? And he looked at me and he pecked at my bum and one thing and another, and I thought, oh, here we go. And then he nuzzled his beak against me. And he said, well, he sort of indicated, nice lady, and I got away totally free.
Poor old Parky copped it, and Green Goddess got away with it. But whatever we do, and I know you believe in diet as well, being incredibly important, and I know you're dismayed.
Not diet.
No, but you're dismayed at, the takeaway culture and all of these things that
I
are happening.
am.
And you know, it seems to me that a large chunk of the country take exercise and health more seriously than their parents and grandparents, but equally a large chunk of the country just don't seem to care at all.
They don't.
And children are obese from their mid-teens onwards, and so it's a very mixed bag. But whatever you do, Diana, whatever you do with diet and exercise, there is this little thing we can't alter called genetics.
There certainly
which
is.
has dealt you a couple of quite cruel blows in your life.
A few.
Your mother died very early.
Very young when I was a child,
When you were a
yes.
child. You yourself have had breast cancer.
At 47.
And battled through. And of course, our Anne Diamond has recovered very
I
recently
believe
from
that
it.
Anne and I have had exactly the same, although she's 40 years after me.
Yeah.
A double mastectomy, that's both sides,
Yeah.
and some immediate reconstruction to try and help us on our way again.
You've
Being
Yeah.
fit helps you get over any of these awful things that happen.
It makes a difference.
Oh, you bet. I remember the surgeon saying to me before all this happened at the Royal Marsden Hospital, and he said, Diana, you are very fit. This will help you enormously to get over the problem. And it did.
And you've campaigned and you've spoken about this issue very publicly and very often.
Kept it secret at the time.
Why was that?
I was ashamed of it. 43 years ago, people didn't talk about cancer. And if you heard about cancer, it was shh, behind the hands. People were going to die. How life has changed, how the attitude to cancer and the treatments and the recovery have changed.
The other health issue that you've campaigned on, and it's a predominantly female issue, is osteoporosis.
Sit up tall, Diana.
Bone thinning.
Yes.
What can women effectively do to ward that off?
Quite definitely, that's to do with diet, to begin with. You must have sufficient calcium, so that's your milk and all those dairy produce, and then you've also got to have enough vitamin D. Now, the vitamin D comes from the sunshine. Who gets enough vitamin D regularly here? So I take every day, and I would advise most women, once they've hit the menopause, quite honestly, because it's all hormonal, to take a calcium plus vitamin D tablet every day, and that's going to help you on your way.
There were many that thought during the COVID pandemic it was a very helpful thing to do as well.
Yes.
Now, you're clearly absolutely still buzzing with energy and spark and
I do
verve.
that quite a lot.
And, I can tell. And you've rediscovered your lost love of art. And these are recent creations, and this is all written during the pandemic.
But this is just about 3 weeks ago.
About 3 weeks ago. Yeah. Tell us well, we can see what it shows.
Well, that one is Nash, short for panache, and he belongs to my next-door neighbour, and he's a trainee for blind dogs. Dogs for the blind.
Fantastic.
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I've got a lab, very similar colour, and and I love this one. I love this one. This is terrific. Now, tell us the story.
I'm very fortunate that I work on the cruise ships quite a lot.
Yes.
Do talking and all the rest of it.
Yes.
I don't do the exercises. I do after-dinner speaking and the likes of. And on this particular cruise, we went down to the Falklands, but you can't always get on ashore at the Falklands at the time. And the captain said, I know there's a lot of you who really do want to go. He said, I'll allow you to get off now. Well, we got into a smaller boat. He said, but if you hear, ooh, 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 you've got to be on the boat, come back immediately. And that's what happened. And I took a photograph of these gorgeous penguins. Penguins are my favourite thing in
Well, it's
life.
a lovely... I mean, I've not been to the Falklands, and I'd like to go, actually, because there's a lot of things I'd like to see there. But that looks quite incredible. So looking back on it all, looking at television, you were one of those pioneers in at the very beginning. How does television today compare to then?
Too many adverts.
Right.
First of all. And also, let's be honest, I'm now 84. There's not an awful lot of the programmes that actually are suited for us. All the, the daily things that go on, aimed at the kids a bit more.
Well, that's what they're after, yes.
But are they? Because they're on their phones.
I know,
all
it's
the
not
time.
working. It's not working.
It's us who want to
the
sit there and
BBC are
watch
after youth culture, and it's not
No,
working.
it isn't.
No, I know. Well,
Give me the Antiques road trip anyway.
yeah, or a good debate on GB News. Or even
watch you.
Talking Pints. Welcome, and thank you for joining.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right, that's it. I'm done. I'm back with you on Monday. I'll be in New York on Monday. Let's have a look at what the weekend weather is going to be.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, it's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. We'll notice the increased humidity during the next few nights. Windy and cloudy conditions starting to appear as well, and an increased risk of showers and thunderstorms as the weekend approaches. High pressure moving away, lower pressure approaching, isobars tightening, the wind picks up overnight. That window is bringing higher humidities across the UK, an increase in the cloud as well, some showers affecting eastern parts of Britain, but heavier downpours arriving by the end of the night across Northern Ireland, Wales into central and southern England. And it's a muggy night for sleeping, 17, 18 Celsius in the south, 13 to 15 Celsius in the north. Those winds of concern, especially across parts of northwest Wales as we go through Friday. 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts, perhaps more in some of the gustier spots, could impact travel, tourism and so on. And heavy showers, even some thunderstorms across parts of central and southern England during Friday morning, frequent lightning, heavy rainfall as well. They diminish into the afternoon. It's a warm and humid day, but a lot of cloud and that breeze will limit temperatures. Then on Friday night, so that's when a lot of action takes place. Heavy rain sweeping through, risk of some very lively thunderstorms in the east of England. And the persistent rain on Saturday continues into the north of Scotland, Northern Ireland, and some, well, heavy rain at times throughout the weekend across northern parts of the UK. Further south, it's sunny spells and showers and still staying quite warm.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.